Can I call everybody to order, please, so we can begin promptly? So good afternoon again, dear friends, and welcome to this closing session of the progress review of the Global Compact on Refugees. And I am pleased, as a first point, to welcome to the podium Mr. Vincenzo Mascioli, who is the State Secretary for Migration of Switzerland, representing the co-host. Mr. Mascioli, it is a great pleasure to have you with us this afternoon, and I take already this opportunity to thank Switzerland once again for really supporting so strongly and so effectively the organization and the running of this meeting. Thank you very much. Now, I have to almost immediately excuse myself and move to the panel area because we will have a conversation with, I will have a conversation with refugees as one of the final concluding act of this of this meeting. I want to, before I move there, to recall also for the sake of Mr. Mascioli, of the State Secretary, that the presence of refugees, of displaced people, of stateless people, people who have had or have lived experience of displacement has been a very important feature of the last 3 days. So it's very important that we have a final discussion with some of them and share the thought for all of you. So if you will excuse myself, I'll just move a couple of meters away to participate in this discussion.
Thank you so much, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. My name is Monica Mali, the advocate lead for TRSN, Tertiary Refugee Student Network, and it's my honor to invite you to this session today. And I'm also honored to invite to our panel the High Commissioner for Refugees, Mr. Filippo Grandi. We acknowledge and are happy for your continued leadership in keeping reminding us of the meaningful participation of stateless people and refugees. And to my right is Ms. Cecile Pango, who is the founder of Women for Action and the co-lead for gender equality and protection on the protection from gender-based violence, multi-stakeholder pledge. And on my left is Krista, who is the president of Tertiary Refugee Student Network in Latin America and our communication leads at the global level for Tertiary Refugee Student Network. And to my father's right, my father's left, sorry, is Mejdi, who is the refugee advisor for German government representation to the Global Refugee Forum Progress Review. As we all know, the problems of refugees are becoming more protracted every year. We speak of inclusion of refugees, we make pledges, but the question always remains, how are we implementing the pledges that we make, and what is the progress we make every year when it comes to issues of refugees and inclusion of refugees? And this conversation is very important today because we need to know from the refugees and from the High Commissioner what has been the progress from the pledges that we make. And my question goes to all of you. The first question goes to all of you. And it is, looking back in your respective roles, how will you assess the progress made in advancing the meaningful participation of stateless persons and refugees at the global, regional, and local levels, and how has it led to improved solutions and outcomes for the displaced persons? I will start with you, the High Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. This is an important conversation. And I would say, and forgive me if some of you have heard me say these things before, but first of all, meaningful participation of refugees. You know, today in my notes I saw MRP. Please don't use this acronym. Meaningful participation is not an acronym. Really, that's a key point. We want to make this very real, not an acronym, right? That's very important. So I think that we have, of course, a long way to go, but and numbers do not tell the whole story. But I can't, you know, I'm not very good at statistics, but if I remember the first Global Refugee Forum 2019, I think we were about, what, 70 people, 70 people with lived experience, refugees, displaced, stateless, participating in the proceedings. And this time is, I don't know the final statistics, but it's more than 300 that were supposed to come. Maybe in the end it's not exactly that, but it's about, let's say, 4 times more. So numbers, again, do not tell the whole story, but we have progressed. And in all, or maybe almost all the events that we had here, there was some participation. And I think this is important. This is important because it means that that voice is now there and can influence the debates and the discussion. This is the point I wanted to make. I think we need to go further than that, but I think it is a good trajectory. But, and forgive me if I raise a point that I think I even raised at the last Global Refugee Forum at the same meeting, remember, the meaningful participation means that it has to be at all levels. Not just here, which is a great forum for discussion, for advocacy, for new ideas, so very important, but at all levels, all the way to where it matters most, in my opinion, which is at the field level. This is really where it matters. I visit all the time, I have visited all the time refugee situations, and it's very uneven. It's not even. In some places it happens, in some places it's a bit tokenistic. Yeah, let's have a refugee and ask him or her what we should do. And in some places it doesn't happen at all. And this is also sometimes our fault. You know, we, the organizations, are not doing this yet. I think it has improved a lot in the last few years, but it's not yet there. And the final point I want to make is about, like you, Mehdi, you are, Mehdi, right? Mehdi, you are part of the German delegation, and I know that some delegation, Canada and others, have a person with lived experience as part of it. I hope that this practice becomes broader. And sorry, I don't mean to be provocative here, but it would be great, you know, here in our UNHCR world, the refugee world, we have donor countries and host countries, right? Would be great that some refugees would be in host countries delegation as well. I said it the other night at the RC event, and I think it's very important because this is really where it is the most important, at the field level, represented also in the host country. I know it's complicated, very political in some places. Let's call a spade, but I'm sure that there will be some host countries hopefully reflecting on it going forward.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. My name is Cecilia Dupongo, and I am a refugee. I live in Malawi. I would like to show how much this global forum has transformed things. at the field level. Mr. High Commissioner, dear guests, before 2019, women-led organizations had no clear vision on what to do and how to act in order to help women in their refugee situations. But I was here in 2023 at the occasion of the Global Refugee Forum, and that's where I realized that women do have rights. We can do something, we can act, but we need to be diplomatic about the way that we negotiate these rights. When I went back to my country in Malawi, I brought back these demands, and I explained to women around me that we needed to actually negotiate. We needed to learn from people who know how to do this, and we needed to train in this matter. And that's how we got more information, we got trained so that we got ready to actually negotiate. And this is how, in Malawi, over 25 women-led organizations were fully funded. My organization was funded by the Innovation Fund, the UN Innovation Fund. We've started working together with women to empower them. And all of these women, they are the victims. They are the ones who should voice the importance of fighting gender violence. And women are now participating in these conversations because we've called them, we've invited them, and we've given them some space for this. Mr. High Commissioner, I'd like to let you know that in Malawi, women know their rights. Over 80% of women are informed of their rights. Men and boys who are the ones who commit crimes, they also are now aware of what gender-based violence means and how to protect women from these violences. I believe that the Global Refugee Forum is a great opportunity to share knowledge and information. And this is not only done by us or organizations, this is also your work, Mr. High Commissioner, your work for over 10 years. And thanks to this dedication, we get great results. Thank you very much.
Krista? Thank you. It is a pleasure for me to be here today representing the refugee community from Latin America. And out of respect for the community I'm representing, I will be speaking in my mother tongue. So please, I kindly invite you to put on the headphones again and connect to the translation. In Latin America,
we have taken huge strides. We have opened up spaces and we have gained the legitimacy for the voices that we represent. I wanted to share with you 3 specific examples of my region. Firstly, I'd like to speak about a youth network which was built together with refugees, statelessness persons and displaced persons. With that space, we wanted to provide them with a secure space. We wanted to allow them to use that platform to engage with institutions, with stakeholders, to gain impact. Carlos is a mechanism we have as well, which is present in all Latin America and the Caribbean. It's made up of 150 RLOs, and these RLOs share a lot of experience, and they are able to exchange that experience in one single space, this mechanism, which allows us to formulate real proposals and to have a true representation of all our region. And the third example I wanted to share with you is the example of Tertiary Refugee Network, which is a global network which started off in Latin America 3 years ago. We are currently present in Ecuador and Colombia, And together we are working to gain influence in the field of education, as that is the approach we want to follow, to influence in the field of education, to open up channels of education for refugees. Only 7% of refugees in Latin America have been able to follow studies at a university level. Before this network, only 1% of refugees were able to do so. Cartagena Plus 40 is a declaration which gave voice to youth refugees and which served to reinforce protection for them. We celebrated the 40th anniversary of the Declaration of Cartagena a few months ago. For the first time, refugees sat at the table, were able to provide opinions, to provide solutions. We were part and parcel of that event. And precisely in the Declaration of Chile, or in virtue of the Declaration of Chile, we carried out regional consultations to include the voices of young refugees. We have worked in favor of all these sorts of mechanisms to give us more representation and to have a more structured representation in our region. Thank you.
Marhaba.
Good afternoon.
Me to be sitting on this plenary next to you, Mr. High Commissioner, and the great speakers and moderator. I'll share some reflection from the experience that we have made in Germany. Since the last GRF, so many significant changes happened in this world, and these had immense impact on refugees, displaced people, the staff and the system who is supporting them. I would like to take a moment to focus on the beams of sunshine that made it through this cloudy environment. So by that, I would like to speak about what happened in Germany. In GRF 2023, Germany made a pledge on increasing refugee participation. That was followed with a lot of preparations and led to the establishment of the Refugee Advisory Board in October 2024. We started as a group of 6 members who have different expertise coming from different regional places in the world who are based in Germany. We started directly after this establishment by getting an invitation from the German government to join them, part of the delegation in the EXCOM 2024, as well in the preparation. So this is I'm bringing some details because it's, as you said, it's not only about being there, it's about how much we are really involved in the preparation. So we got the invitation, we got involved in the preparation, and after that I came to Geneva in EXCOM 2024 and participated in it. The good progress that we have experienced is that in the next year, the German government reached out to us, this time earlier, asking us to be preparing some inputs for the next EXCOM as well for the GRF. So this is something that we have seen as a very positive development because it showed that the first time it had led for some added value for us as well. And we gave feedback that would be like to involve more in the preparation, not only in being around, because I believe it's the value in Geneva is huge, but there is a lot of value happening between the EXCOMs and between the GRFs, where most of the important discussions happened. So since then, besides being involved in this kind of high-level conferences, we have been as well invited to give some insights on topics like the Syrian developments that happened since the fall of the Assad regime. So we have been still going in conversations with the Ministry of Cooperation and International Collaboration and with the Foreign Federal Office. And this is something that we have reacted to. But at the same time, we have brought our topics and our priorities to the table. And by that, I mean we brought the topic of humanitarian pathways from Afghanistan. We have brought the topic of third country nationals on the context of the war in Ukraine. So, and the mental health and psychosocial support needs of refugees in Germany. So it's like a two-ways collaboration as well. It's not something that we are sitting there waiting for the German government to reach us and asking for inputs or for comments. So we are actively reaching out. For us, we know this is like baby steps, and we know we're still on the first part of the path. But we are happy to see the direct effect that this inclusion is bringing and the indirect one. I think Mr. High Commissioner brought attention that this would have an effect on other countries, hopefully, that they would see how this refugee participation could look like and what kind of added value it brings to the table. We know that right now there is a huge ethical and funding challenges that's happening, but just wanted to bring attention, like these things are not disencouraging us. It's on the contrary, it shows that our work is more needed now than before. So for me, like one last thing I would like to add, like I would like to encourage everyone to look at these beams of sunlight that made it through the clouds. We have heard a few of them yesterday in the Nansen Awards, and I think there are many of them that didn't make it yesterday to the Nansen Awards. So please, whenever you feel that there is, like the pressure is so immense, try to search for these lights and think about them. Yeah, and thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your contributions. And to just make a few reflections from your contributions, what stands out is that the host countries, and not only the host countries, but the countries that we come from, have a role to play in issues of refugees. And in my last engagement with IGAD, I was telling my country people that if South Sudan is peaceful for other refugees from other countries, why is it not peaceful for South Sudanese? If it's peaceful for Sudan, why is it not for us? And that's the question to all the host countries and to the countries of origin that refugees come from. From Cecile, it's about equipment, equipping the refugees and organizations, women-led organizations, in how to deal with issues of refugees, and feedback to the communities that we represent, as well as refugees' participation and coming back with positive feedback. So my next question, and you have to be mindful of time, 3 minutes each, is that looking ahead as meaningful refugee participation ambassadors in your respective roles, what needs to happen next to ensure continued and strengthened participation, contribution to more impactful responses? And I'll start with Majdi. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll keep it short. I hope that we got over the stage to talk about why participation is important and why it's something essential for these discussions. I'll go to share some insights from the experience that we've made in Germany, and we're still developing. I think one of the most important things that I would bring attention to is the institutionalization of the process. Like, this is one of the most important things that would make meaningful refugee participation resilient to any political or funding changes. Otherwise, it's always going to be affected by what's going on, and it will make it optional or not always possible to happen. So I invite everyone to invest in finding mechanism to make refugee participation institutionalized. The other thing that I would like to bring attention to is to think about refugee participation as a long-term partnership. It's not something that you can build within a few days or within a few months, and it's not something that you want to have for a few months or like for 1 year. It's something that goes over years, and especially if we're talking about building trust between governmental and non-governmental bodies, and in this case would be most of the time there is the refugee representative, and on the other side there is the governmental bodies. And I think, as you all know here, these kind of relationships need a lot of trust, need a lot of time to build a strong basis that will serve later as an establishment for this partnership. One more thing I would like to bring attention to, and I think you've mentioned it already in the beginning, which is about that it's great to see the participation happening in Geneva. And I think it's super important that participation is also happening on different places and in different formats. And by this, I mean in hosting countries, in countries of origin, on the transit, like participation could have different formats. And I think what we experience here is a great example, but it's still one of the different and several sorts of participation. There is one more thing I would like to speak about, which is think about participation as a way to answer many of the questions that we are having right now. All the talks we have about efficiency and effectiveness and localization and self-reliance. For me personally, I see that part of the answer is always related to meaningful refugee participation. So it's something that that I think would be logical to think about these two topics as a one. And I'll finish here because I'm seeing some looks at me. Thank you so much.
Ok, seré corta. Principalmente creo que lo que necesita.
Thank you. I think that what we need beyond participation is that participation be meaningful. It's not just about inviting refugees to a meeting and let them speak for 2 hours and then let them go back home and then not allow them to be part of the process. It's really about institutionalization, resources, and to have that shared responsibility be amongst all the actors. And that's the reason why we are suggesting, we're putting out there that we need, of course, financing. I know that the budget cuts have had affected a lot, but in our region, this is a huge impact because we are not in an armed conflict, and we understand, of course, that the impact is huge. In our region, we have one of the countries with the highest amount, or one of the highest amounts of refugees to the planet, and is the continent that has suffered the biggest cuts, financial cuts, and therefore we do need that support, a support that will allow us to monitor progress, to have statistics, to have the data, to be able to also propose and advance in our projects. We need that investment because without it, and although we have been able to progress with the budget cuts, at some point that's going to stop, or it will really slow down. And what we need is that money to help the refugees. We might even come to the point where that nationality no longer needs to be a refugee, but in the meantime, we need to be able to support those people to be able to have a meaningful impact on those communities. And another thing is to make sure that doors do open to different spaces, to different mechanisms, that we open doors to NGOs, to work with governments, with agencies, to make sure that everybody works together to bring that support, and that the support is not coming only for one day, one event, 1 week, but that we truly have a good participation that has a real impact, that we don't just use it to speak nicely, to say nice words, no, so that we can really allow for that contribution. It's not just for this subject. The people who really will know how to solve things are the people who are going through those experiences. They are the ones who really want to find a solution. They are the ones who really want to contribute. And therefore, what we are doing is to calling upon everyone to come and join us, and not just as a region or a community, as a world, because the world needs that unification, needs that union for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, pour cette deuxième question,
regarding this second question, we feel that for these 2 years before 2027, women need to come together. We can't work separately in isolation. We have to join forces. We created a network
African Women Refugee Network, ARNET, that is aimed at bringing together all the organizations led by female refugees, women IDPs, and those who don't have a voice. So ARNET has worked for the last 2 years, and we will be giving a louder voice to those organizations that I've just mentioned. We're going to train them and strengthen their capacities, build their capacities so that they can take part in the discussions and be seated at the decision-making table. They need to be able to take part. With this network, we want to be present everywhere. We don't only want to be in contact with international organizations. We need to be in touch with banks, with all the entities of the private sector. We want to be everywhere, getting the funds, working hard on multi-stakeholder pledges, on the rights of the women. And this network exists and is there to carry the voices of all women. Even if you feel that they're not capable of doing so, we will be working. We will do everything that's needed for those voices to be heard. And before ending, the women sent me to see the Commissioner to tell him that we have a small gift for him. He's worked really hard for 10 years, and we can't let him leave without our little gift. The women and Africa send you this gift. And we and they would like you to wear this symbol, similar to mine, so that we can stand up and support those who have funds. You're here. Those who have ideas, you're here. Those who have major programs for women, you're here too, because we need to help those women, refugees, IDPs, and migrants. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Qu'est-ce que je peux dire après?
Thank you so much. What can I say after this beautiful gift's been given me? I can only encourage you and all the women who work on this cause, whatever their role and at all levels. I'm delighted that we've been able to help you, but I'm sure that more can be done and we can do more together.
To respond very briefly to your important question, a bit I already said, but I want to add a few things. First of all, I think we all agree on this panel and in general in this room, I'm sure, that meaningful participation means being, as Cécile just said, being at the table. That's the key issue. And being at the table means not only being in the nice discussions, but being as much as possible, it's very complex, to be part of the key decisions. And that's why I go back to my field point. You know, that's where the key decisions are made about where do you dig a well, or how much money you give to this organization or another. And these are complex decisions. When it comes to money in particular, it's sensitive, it's complex, but we need to get to that point. And that's why we at UNHCR are very keen to support refugee-led organization, women-led organization. But, you know, we need to do it with a lot of wisdom, if you wish. That means, in my opinion, that there's a few things that we all need to look into. And this is maybe an agenda for the future. One is the issue of representation. This, for me, has always been a key issue since I started working many decades ago. Who represents whom? You know, and I think it's important because, of course, we're not talking here about perfect democracies, but we need to make sure that those at the table represent a maximum number of people who will then benefit or use or, you know, will have the impact of those decisions. And that is not easy. I've been in many refugee situations. That's not easy in general in the world, but also in the sphere of displacement when population are moving, often very politicized. I think it would be good to reflect on representation. I'm sure a lot has already been thought through, but more of that. The second, and I said this the other day at the RC event, but let me say it again, language. You know, but I know that, and I'm listening to you, and I'm very encouraged to hear that you're not speaking our language, meaning the bureaucratic language of the organizations, of the diplomacy. That has its own meaning and importance. I'm not dismissing it. But what, you know, if there is a discussion on self-reliance, we need to understand what it means, self-reliance, for people. We need a person to stand up and say, for me, self-reliance is this, that, and that. And that's what you need to work. Concrete, practical, no acronym, no formulas. That's what we need to really evolve in that direction. And the third one, and it's a bit related to the others, and my concluding point is, you know, the first day on, before the first day on Sunday, I went to the session, so-called training session for those with lived experience that participated here. And I said, you have a difficult task, maybe like all of us, but you in particular, because you have, on the one hand, you have to be politically savvy. These meetings are very political. So you have to be aware of the politics and be smart in the way you navigate through that. But then you have to be very direct, and in a way, I'm asking you, be diplomatic and also not be diplomatic. You have to be both. You know, the faith-based organizations, especially the Christian ones, will recognize this, but there is, many of you will know that there is biblical advice, which I often quote, that you have to be as wise as doves, like the peace birds, and as smart as snakes. You have to be both a dove and a snake in order to be effective. And I think that you, representing displaced communities, stateless communities, really, you are, I know many of you, you are, but use that double approach, because you will need both to be effective in pursuing, in furthering this such important issue as meaningful participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And before I go to my last question, which will just be one sentence to wrap up your contribution to this panel, is that advocacy for all the refugees or representative of refugees is very expensive, because you have seen me sitting next to the High Commissioner, and when I go back to the refugee camp, to where I come from, they know that I have a direct access to him. So that if there's a problem happening, I can just take my phone and call him. Yes. And in the next 2 days, 10 days is a lot, I'll find a solution to all our problems. And that's why, apart from the representation we make here, we also have to look at feedback. How do we tell the people we represent? And that has to come with facilitation, because as Monica, coming from Kenya as a refugee and other refugees here, we might be less than 10. But how do we get feedback to people we represent the same way to all the refugees here today? And it has to go beyond participation. It has to be facilitating me to give them feedback, like I've been saying. So my last question to all of you today in one sentence will be, in one sentence only, what can you personally pledge to do over the next 2 years leading to the Global Refugee Forum in 2027? And for me, it will be peace. Being an ambassador for peace, because peace is the first solution to displacement. And now to you, Ms. Cecile, what is this one sentence that you will say?
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. I have one sentence. Let us stand up, support refugee women, support organizations created by women refugees if we want gender-based violence to end. Thank you.
Your question's a little bit difficult, because you said in the next 2 years, and I'm stepping down in 10 days, but I can make a pledge. I can make a pledge that in spite of stepping down, I'll continue to be a voice for you.
Thank you so much. And that, that that brings about the emphasis of our role in not only being in positions, but being advocates individually, not you being the High Commissioner. Thank you.
Okay, yo me comprometo.
Well, I commit to be persistent despite all obstacles, despite budget cuts, despite any problem. We need to be persistent, because being persistent means we can reach our goals.
Thank you for the question. For me, my pledge is built on an experience that I built on my personal and my work experience, which had brought me to learn what it means to lose control over one's life. So my pledge is keep supporting refugees, displaced and stateless people in regaining autonomy and gaining their self-reliance. This is what I will be working on for the next 2 years, and I'll be happy to reflect on it on the next GRF. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much. And our call out, since you don't have the chance to contribute to this panel as the audience, we are calling you out to further the conversation as you go back to your respective countries and your respective homes. The peace begins with you, and every other change that we want to see is an individual choice. Thank you so much, and have a good evening.